Thank you, Ashley. By the way, good luck finding Afghanistan coverage anywhere these days, unless it's a 30-second voiceover about a suicide bomb or a soldier coming home to surprise his family, which is always a beautiful story, by the way. At least oftentimes it brings me to tears. Otherwise, the media treats this as just some far-away war that's probably too far away to even care about. We're joined now by John Jordan. He is a former naval intelligence officer. He's an attorney. He's a political expert. He's an economist. Talk about a guy wearing a lot of hats. I don't know which one I want to start with, but I think I'm going to start with this one, all right? I'm going to start with your economist hat. If I were Kellogg Brown and Root, or if I were Blackwater, and the media wasn't covering this war, and I was making bank on it, I'd probably be going, hey, that's great. I'm glad you guys ain't paying attention to anything that I'm doing over here. If nobody's watching and I keep getting big contracts to fight the longest war in American history, yippee, right? I mean, should we be concerned about that as Americans?
Of course we should. I mean, Afghanistan has fallen off the front pages, and you're absolutely right. I think we're going to get into the peace process here, and I got an answer that I think is going to surprise you.
Yeah.
But on behalf, I think the current administration applauds Russian efforts in this regard. I know I do. I got to spend a lot of time in Afghanistan. Can't say I enjoyed it. But we applaud it, and the Russians are doing the right thing.
You know what worries me is that as a citizen of the United States, I worry that these things, and I know you know more about this than I do, that these things are almost getting away from us, that the decisions that go into whether we keep this war, get out of this war, have less to do with guys like Rick and John and more to do with really big multinational corporations who are making so much money, it's going to be almost hard to get in their way.
What kind of comes down to this? Afghanistan is a problem everybody wants to solve, but it's real estate nobody wants to own. And America does want to and needs to leave Afghanistan, but we need to leave the Afghan government in charge and not permit a return of the Taliban. Mm-hmm. And Afghan politics are hugely complex. And the best thing America can do for the peace process actually here in Moscow is stay out of it. Stay out of the peace talks. We're happy to get into that if you want.
Why? Why would you want to stay out of the peace talks, John?
Well, you have to the upside down, complicated world of Afghan politics, the hardline elements inside the Taliban, and there are different factions within the Taliban, actually, are seeking to delegitimize the current Afghan government in Afghan eyes, because keep in mind, they want to replace the Afghan government and want to get back to power. So they want to delegitimize it and call it an American puppet. And that's why it's been the Taliban's position is that we will not talk directly to the Afghan government. We will only talk to the Americans, because the Afghan government is nothing but a stooge of Washington. This is part of the narrative they spin in Afghanistan to delegitimize and weaken the Afghan government. By staying out of it, and by the Afghan government sending the High Peace Council, which really is a representative of the Afghan government, it forces the Taliban to actually talk to the Afghan government and begin the process of an Afghan solution.
You know, and I know that you're a good guy, a smart guy, an earnest guy, and you're trying to help us figure this out. But I keep going back to square one. What's the mission? What's the stated objective? And what's the timetable for achieving it? Maybe I just forgot, because 17 years later, I can't remember. Why are we there?
Well, first of all, the objective was to rid ourselves of the Taliban, which were providing a home base and safe haven for al-Qaeda. That was what happened pre-9/11. Since then, we've been trying to prop up and support a central Afghan government, which frankly hasn't gone very well given the tribal nature of Afghanistan. There's even 5-6 different languages spoken there, not to mention the different clans. And we haven't had a lot of effort. It was another example of nation building gone amok. But that's the idea, is to deny international terrorism a home base.
You worry a little bit about what I mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure if I got you to give me an answer on that. That there's so much money involved in this thing right now that it's less about the soldiers, it's less about the GIs, it's less about, you know, Marines and, you know, guys like you who've had experience in this, and more about, you know, the Kellogg Brown and Roots of the world and the Halliburtons and those guys. Do you worry about that a little bit too?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course you do. I mean, these are all ex-military people that have basically signed on at higher pay to stay in Afghanistan is really what those companies are doing. And it's unfortunate. Anytime in any human activity, some company, somebody's going to find a way to make money on it, no matter how sad. But at the end of the day, we got to keep our eye on the prize here, and that is to stabilize a central, democratically elected Afghan government that can provide peace and prosperity for its people. That's the mission here, and that's what the Russians are seeking to do, it would seem. And I think that we are actually on the same page, and the smart Afghan experts in the Russian foreign ministry know that it's best that we stay out of this too.
John Jordan, you're a good guy. Thanks for coming on and sharing your perspective with us. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Sure, buddy.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.